All right, everybody ready? Okay, awesome. Let's get started. Oh, whoopsies. I added a minute. I shouldn't do that. Okay. Okay. All right, so I'd like to first off thank everybody for coming here today to debate this extremely difficult topic. We will get right into it, why marijuana should be legalized. I'm going to give a couple definitions first and then the weighing mechanism for how to measure this round. So the definition of marijuana is the dried leaves and flowers of the hemp plant used for its euphoric effects, especially in the form of cigarettes. And I'll be using other interchangeable terms such as weed, pot, grass, hemp, cannabis throughout my speech. So if you get confused, those are marijuana also. The definition of should is a good idea, and then legalize is to make permissible by law. The weighing mechanism used for today is net benefits to citizens of the United States. So my first contention is benefit to taxpayers, and then my second is benefit to society. So going right through my first contention, the benefit to taxpayers, there should be in place a tax on the sale of weed if this were to be legalized. Washington State is a state that has legalized recreational marijuana, and their expected pot revenue for the 2017-2019 bunch of year is $730 million. And then they're going to use more than 60% of that to be used towards public health programs like Medicaid, substance abuse prevention, and community health centers, according to the Office of Financial Management. And they also want some of that to be proposed to go towards K-12 schools. They are still kind of looking into that because the voters of Washington don't really necessarily want all that to go to K-12 schools, but it will for sure be going to those health programs as I mentioned. And then also right off of that, according to the American Civil Liberties Union, 52% of all drug busts in 2010 were for marijuana. This is states waste approximately $3.6 million enforcing marijuana laws each year and making this criminalized. This is, according to CNN, 61% of Americans think marijuana use should be legal, and 71% of Americans do not think the federal government should try to prohibit the sale and use in states that have legalized it. So this is also just kind of not criminalizing this and making it legal for the use of creating revenue for the state and having the federal government intervention completely out of the picture. My second contention being the benefit to society. According to CBS News, 65% of Americans think weed is less dangerous than other drugs. Only 23% think legalizing leads to an increase in crime. And smoking weed obviously has side effects, just like cigarettes. Smoking cigarettes, tobacco, alcohol, all those kind of things have side effects as well. But also smoking smoking weed, however, has edible and vape options that leave not the harsh chemicals into the atmosphere like smoking does. And also they're trying to look into the different things about impaired driving and how alcohol, when you're impaired by alcohol, it makes you like really jittery and stuff, whereas when you're impaired by pot, you're more relaxed, you're really more cautious and stuff like that. So they're trying to like do more research on that, whether to compare the two between being like a DUI for weed versus a DUI for alcohol. And then 69% of Americans thought that this should be treated as an addiction and a mental health problem rather than putting people in jail. As I had said before, we spend a lot of money just on the state end just because of the fact that we have to criminalize this and put people in jail because of this. And so just kind of walking back through my points, my first being the benefit to taxpayers. I laid out the numbers for that, and then a couple statistics about why it is beneficial to us as state taxpayers, and then also why it is currently a waste for us to be spending money on our taxes that go towards jail and other programs like that and not on more productive methods. And then my second being the benefit to society, where it is pretty much just like smoking or alcohol, except it's more, right now it's currently in the harsher penalty, which I don't believe is correct. So with that, I stand down for cross-ex.
Judges ready? Opponent ready? All right. Thank you for that great speech. I do want to start off with a few clarifying questions. There won't be much. So first of all, is marijuana safe?
Is marijuana safe?
Yes.
It has around the same effects as smoking a cigarette or alcohol does.
Okay, great. And under your second contention, which was benefits to society, you talked about how a lot of people think that it should be legalized. Can you give those that statistic again?
How many people think it should be legalized?
Yeah.
Well, I said under that contention, 65% of Americans think weed is less dangerous than other drugs.
Okay.
And I said in my previous contention that that 61% think marijuana should be legal.
And this is just the general public?
This is Democrat, Republican,
Gotcha.
Independent from CNN.
Great, thank you.
Okay.
And that's all I have.
Thank you.
Judges ready? Opponent ready? Sweet. First, I do want to start off by thanking you all so much for being here. Emily especially, as of course, this would not be possible without you. I'm very glad that we are actually debating today, so I was very excited about this round, and I'm ready to get it started. So, first, I'm going to kind of just go through her case, the top case, and then my own case, and I'm going to give a few contentions, a few reasons why I think that you should vote negative today. So first, her first contention, I should address her top case. I do agree with her top case. I agree with her definitions. And I agree with the weighing mechanism today of net benefits to citizens of the United States. So first, she talks about benefits to taxpayers. And basically, she says that it would create a lot of money for the U.S. if it was legalized and if we taxed it. Sure. But this does not actually tell us why it should be legalized. I mean, we have a lot more work to do before we even come close to saying that it should be legalized. Because as I asked her in cross-ex, it's not safe. It's not safe to use. There are a lot of medical detriments that can come from smoking marijuana. And just because alcohol and cigarettes have medical detriments too, that doesn't mean that marijuana should also be legalized. If we can prevent people from ruining their own lives, we should. I think that's true. So she says that states would make a lot of money on marijuana, and a lot of people think that it should be legalized, but this is just an ad populum argument there. But the fact that the states would make a lot of money if it were legalized, the states would make a lot of money if a lot of things were legalized. That can't be our main reason for action in today's debate. We need to be talking about bigger things like health and due process. And scientific consensus, and alternatives to medical marijuana as well, which I will talk about. And second, her second contention was benefits to society. And she basically just made another ad populum argument here, saying that a lot of people think that it should be legalized. A lot of people don't think it's dangerous. Why do I care what they think? Why do I care if a bunch of people in the United States think that it should be legalized? We want to be talking about experts here, not the general public. The general public probably doesn't know about a lot of the effects of marijuana and the alternatives to medical marijuana as well. So next, going into my own case, I'm going to have three main contentions for you today. First being scientific consensus, the second being due process, and the third being alternatives. And I'm going to be responding to recreational marijuana, but also medical marijuana even if we consider even just medical marijuana, the legalization of medical marijuana. I'm still going to show you why that would be a bad idea in today's debate. So first, scientific consensus. There was a National Academy of Science meta-study of 10,000 studies showing them inconclusive on the whole. They said, conclusive evidence regarding the short and long-term health effects, harms, and benefits of cannabis use remains elusive. A lack of scientific research has resulted in a lack of information on the health implications of cannabis use, which is a significant public health concern for vulnerable populations such as adolescents and pregnant women. So basically, we don't know what it does. Legalizing it on the whole would be an incredibly bad idea right now because we simply don't know what all health effects it has. So it would be an incredibly dangerous proposition. Second, potential health risks, and this is from the Mayo Clinic. They said that further study is needed to answer this question, but possible short and long-term health risks of using marijuana to treat, even to treat medical conditions still include addiction, which occurs in 10% of users who start smoking the drug before age 25. Breathing problems for those who smoke the drug, dizziness, impaired concentration and memory, increased heart rate, increased risk of heart attack or stroke, mental illness in people with a tendency towards it, slower reaction times and withdrawal symptoms. And my second contention is going to be due process. So basically the FDA has a process they have to go through before they basically say, yes, this drug or this medication or whatever is safe to use for the general public. And they have not fully gone through that process. The FDA has not approved any product containing or derived from botanical cannabis, from botanical marijuana for any indication. This means that the FDA has not found any such product to be safe or effective, even for the treatment of any disease or condition. Study of marijuana in clinical trial settings is needed to assess the safety and effectiveness of marijuana for medical use. So it hasn't met FDA standards. Approval process includes clinical trials, regulations, review, and quality standards. It must be approved because it's safe and not voted in because it's popular. It doesn't matter how many people think that it should be legalized if it's unsafe. If it's going to be harming their lives. Moving forward right now and legalizing marijuana without showing care for the process would be exceedingly foolhardy and setting a bad precedent. So third, there are alternatives. Even if we're considering just medical marijuana today, there are a lot of better alternatives even to medical marijuana. The FDA has approved 3 drugs for human use that contain active ingredients present in or similar to those in botanical marijuana, such as Marinol and Syndros, and Kesamet, and there's others still in clinical trials. So basically there are 3 FDA-approved THC drugs and at least 5 more on the way, but people don't know about it because pot pushers, people who are trying to get marijuana legalized, want to hush this up. For these reasons, I stand down and urge a negative ballot.
All right. Okay. Everybody ready? Okay. All right. I just have a couple questions for you, Ben. Great speech. If you would you go through your taglines just one more time for me?
Sure. Yeah. First was, if I can get my pages apart. The first was scientific consensus.
Okay.
The second was due process.
Okay.
The third was alternatives.
Okay. All right. Okay. And okay. And then as far as it hasn't met FDA standards, do you know along the lines if alcohol or tobacco has met FDA standards?
No, but I assume that since they are on, the mass production scale and they have been for a long time, I would assume that the FDA would be involved.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Thank you very much. That's all the questions I have. All right. Everybody ready? Okay. All right. I'm just going to get right into it. And I'm just going to start right off with going right through the flow. So the main argument for my first contention that Ben made was that that it is just because a majority of people want it doesn't mean that they're knowledgeable about it and and has the scientific research to back up the fact that we should legalize this and follow through with it. So my response to this is that, as I asked in cross-ex, and I'm not going to really push this too hard, but we don't know if cigarettes or alcohol or any tobacco product for that matter has been really approved by the FDA. I don't think it really would have been if it has the same detrimental effects as marijuana does. This is alcohol, for example, has extreme like depression attributes to it, as well as cigarettes are extremely addictive and have very high health risks, like heart disease and different cancers that can happen in your throat, everything like that. So, and then that kind of goes along with his response to my second contention too, just being that the general public probably doesn't understand what's going on. And with that, I'm just going to argue that if they have more of an understanding, then that I do agree, more research should go into it, but I don't think that limiting it to that if the majority of people want this, then I think that it should be looked at a lot faster than it is now. And to go right down for his scientific consensus, and he had a study that said that there was a lack of information and they still don't know what it does. There are potential health risks such as addiction, but as we've probably all seen, alcohol, tobacco, everything like this also has an addictive fact. There's also things that have food addiction is a real thing. I don't think we should discontinue food as something that is part of our daily lives just because of its addictive properties. And as well as the due process behind it, it has a process that it needs to go through, and it hasn't met the FDA standards as he has said, and it needs to be safe. The thing about that though is whether or not it is safe or not is, if this was to be legalized, they could use this to benefit the society more. They could use this to better put into different programs like the medical programs that I had mentioned, to do more further research and to benefit the people that are on abuse prevention and Medicaid partakers and things like that. So.
All right, judges ready? Opponent ready? Sweet. Since this is my last speech today, I do want to thank you all so much for being here, the people that are. Thank you for judging, thank you for flowing. I'll be looking forward to seeing everything after today's debate. And of course, thank you, Emily, for a great debate. I'm looking forward to finishing this out. So I am just going to get right into the flow, and then I'm going to give you some reasons why you can feel comfortable in circling the negative on that ballot. So her first contention, benefits to taxpayers. She basically restated a point that the state would make a lot of money if it was legalized, and it might benefit some people as well. But the government is already getting a lot of money, and they waste a lot of it. I think there are a lot better ways of giving money to these institutions than taxing a very unsafe drug. So basically, we're going to harm society to benefit society. That doesn't make any sense to me. Because if we do legalize marijuana, so many more people are going to be smoking than already are, and so many people are going to be incurring those health risks. Just because alcohol and tobacco also have health detriments. First of all, I don't think that they have the health detriments that marijuana has on the whole. She didn't really conclusively show that, in my opinion. Even if they do, that does not mean that we should legalize marijuana just because this other thing is legal. Just because these other bad things are legal, this bad thing should be legal. That makes no logical sense to me. And so she basically restated too that people do think that it should be legalized, and that this is still a reason why it should be legalized. I've shown this to be untrue. I've shown that there is no scientific consensus on the health benefits or detriments. We don't know what it does. There needs to be further research. The fact of the matter is, in today's debate, there's just not enough evidence to support the affirmative in today's round. There's no clear picture of what harms and what benefits could actually be there. She's presented stuff about more money for the government, but I don't think that that's conclusive. So her second point, benefits to society, I'm basically going to make the same response to this. It's an ad populum argument. We have to have better evidence than just what the people want. Would there be a benefit to society? If it does have huge health detriments, which I think I've shown it does have huge potential health risks, then it's not going to be a benefit to society. It's not going to be a good thing for society, even if they do want it. Even if people, want to jump off bridges, I mean, that doesn't mean it's a good thing for them to do that. And next, I'm just going to go back through my flow and explain some things again. So first, my first contention was scientific consensus, and first the NAS meta-study. So basically, we don't know how dangerous it might be or how beneficial it might be, even for medical cannabis use. And second, potential health risks. And this isn't just addiction. She kind of just scoped this to just addiction, but there was a whole lot more there. Addiction, breathing problems, dizziness, impaired concentration and memory, increased heart rate, increased risk of heart attack or stroke, mental illness in people with a tendency towards it, slower reaction times, and withdrawal symptoms. These do not sound like societal benefits to me. Next, due process. And she kind of responded to this by saying, I don't know if alcohol and tobacco have been approved by the FDA. If it's not approved by the FDA, if marijuana is not approved by the FDA and they have not said that it is safe for use at all, then that's just because alcohol and tobacco might not be approved also. That doesn't mean that that is any reason why marijuana should be legalized. As I said before, we can't just say, okay, these bad things are legalized, this bad thing should also be legalized. We don't need more bad things corrupting our society. So I don't think that she's shown that it would actually be a societal benefit for marijuana to be legalized. And third, alternatives. Even if we're talking just about medical marijuana in today's debate, there are a lot of other better alternatives that are actually THC-based and much safer. So first, Marinol and Syndros, which contain a synthetic version of D9 THC, and then there's also some other drugs as well. And not many people know about these. But I'm going to have 4 voters for you today. First, it's inconclusive. Second, it's dangerous. Third, it sets a bad precedent. And fourth, there are great alternatives. And for these reasons, I stand down and urge a negative ballot.
Okay, everybody ready? All right. Okay, so I'd like to once again thank everybody for coming out for this debate. Ben, thank you for great clash. This has been a really fun round. And I'm just going to go right down the flow to kind of wrap things up. So off of my first contention about the benefit to taxpayers, as we've said, as Ben mentioned, the government gets a lot of money and it doesn't need to really get any more. The thing about that is that people are going to keep smoking it. People smoke it already, like whether or not it's legalized or not. The thing is that if we turn this into a productive way, if we turn this into a productive mechanism where it is taxed by the state and it is something that will further go into more productive things such as the health industry, as I've said, education, those things like that, if it goes into things like that, then we can use the thing that people are still smoking to continue to benefit society that way. And then off of so that's also like benefit to taxpayers that way, also kind of touches on the benefit to society and how this is a overall consensus. A lot of people want this for those in fact reasons. and to go right down to Ben's first contention about the scientific consensus, about how there is no clear evidence for whether it is safe. There, as I've been trying to stress, there is alcohol and tobacco are in use, and yeah, they might have different things, they might have different side effects, but that's not going to stop people from smoking it. That's not going to stop people from eating the edibles or whatever, or vaping or whatever they do and stuff. And just because it's legalized doesn't mean everybody has to do it. If it's something that's a health risk to you, you don't have to do it. But if it's something that people enjoy the high or the euphoria of it, then I don't think that we should stop them just because we're saying it's not safe. We're going to put our foot down as the federal government. I think that should be through a state decision. And then also through the due process, how it's not approved by the FDA. I agree that more research needs to go into this and everything, but while we do this, it should be a more productive output of the financial aspect of this. And then for the alternatives of the medical marijuana, if it has THC in it, why don't we just use THC? Why don't we just use the natural herb that comes from the ground instead of scientifically enacted substance? And then unfortunately I didn't catch all of his voters as far as inconclusive and the alternatives, but my two voters are that it has economic benefits and that people are still going to smoke it. And with that, I thank you for this debate.